Das ist der HSG Student Podcast. Mein Name ist Olli und zusammen gehen wir auf die Suche nach spannenden Geschichten und Persönlichkeiten von der HSG. Today we talk about a topic that has recently been a bit less in the focus as the current geopolitical situation is very present. But still, this topic we're going to talk about is very relevant. Currently, this October, the Pride Month takes place, once again, for the third time since 2020. My guest today is Sakshi Goel. She is the head of Pride Month 2022. And besides this certainly intensive project, she also works for a Swiss bank in a graduate trainee program. And she has also, she just told me, finished her business administration studies here at the University of St.Gallen. So I'm very happy that she took the time to join our podcast while also having to manage the Pride Month that is taking place right now. And obviously the topic we're going to talk about is the LGBTQ topic. So welcome, Sakshi.
Thank you so much, Olivier. And honestly, thank you for inviting me and thank you for speaking in English. I really appreciate the inclusiveness and the fact that you reached out.
It was a pleasure to reaching out to you and to getting to know you beforehand. And, just as mentioned, Pride Month is just right now taking place. I think it just started at the beginning of October. Tell me, how is the energy level, given the organizational burden you are carrying right now?
Honestly, I'm very pleasantly surprised. I was not expecting it to be so successful, if I can say so. I mean, we've just started. We had the first week, which is over. The first event was called Sex Days. And when I compare it to my predecessor, so last year, we were really skeptical because, especially last year with the pandemic situation, there was a lockdown, there was restrictions, there was a mask requirement. So that led to several events being canceled. And our team was really worried that we wouldn't be able to, have the events, because for us, we put in the effort, but we also want people to come and attend the events because we have speakers and we have put in the work. And we actually booked out 2 out of the 3 events, sold out, no places left. We had people DMing us on Instagram if they could come, and this was really nice to see, especially people after the event. Today I was walking to the bathroom, a girl came up to me and said, "Oh, amazing, I saw you yesterday, it was great." And that for me is really heartwarming and lets me know that what we're doing has an impact and people are appreciating it, and that's, I think, what we're here for.
Wow, that's very great to hear. I'm very happy for you. Congratulations on these achievements.
Thank you.
What are you looking forward to the most, maybe in week 3 and 4 of the month? Because, we're going to publish this thing, I think, week 2 of October. What are you looking forward to the most?
I'm looking forward to the after movie that we make. We have been filming. I have an amazing team. We're 5 people in the board, and the head of marketing is preparing, taking shots. And we got a lot of support from the university. We had photographers from Prisma, and we have photographers from the university who are going to come to a podium discussion just next week on inclusivity. So on the 10th of October. So altogether, I'm looking forward to seeing this short clip that shows everything we've done and, communicate that, because oftentimes people might not see it because if they can't attend or they can't make it. So I think to have this visual thing that shows about the month.
And tell me, or I was wondering, why does Pride Month take place in October? Is there a specific reason behind? Or,
That's a very good question. Actually, the first Pride Month in 2020, as we know, was the start of the pandemic. So Pride internationally, worldwide, had to be cancelled or postponed, actually, that's the correct word, to October. And it actually suits our schedule better because in July we have Lernphase. So we're all busy doing exams and studying, and people are traveling, if those who are lucky enough to. So October just makes sense. In September, university starts. So it's like you have 2 weeks to settle in and sign up to the events, and we have some time to organize things, and then we start in October. So it works better. And I'm glad we have good weather because I was scared it was going to be cold and freezing and snowing, but it's bright and sunny, and that's great.
So tell me about, the KPIs, if you want, of the event, how many people are attending, how many events do you have? And maybe also how did this develop, over the last 3 years? Did you grow or?
For sure. I think every year we grow, whether it comes to, for example, the funding, Andreas Oberholzer, he's amazing. He had to really push and fight for this to be there because when you look at it, we have another organization called Unigay. So, I mean, this is not from him. This is what I believe. I believe there might have been pushback, but you already have one initiative for LGBTQ plus rights. Why do you want another? But then at the same time, we have like over 3 consulting clubs. So why not? Like, and Pride Month and Unigay are much different. We are here to celebrate. We're during 1 month really intensively. And Unigay is more of like a network where you can reach out and have friends who are in the community. That's the way I see it. So coming back to your question, what are the KPIs? Every year we're expanding. So one, sponsoring. We're getting a lot of support. This year, for the first time, we had the support of the city of St.Gallen. So we have the university, we have HSG alumni supporting us, we have Canton St.Gallen, we have the city of St.Gallen, we have some corporate sponsorships. Honestly, like, it's this thing. And then we look at the events, we sold out. Actually, half of our events are already sold out. The majority of them will probably be sold out, not to be egoistic, but it's just the facts. And what else? And yeah, we have over 250 people coming, and that for us is really unexpected and overwhelming, and we're really happy.
So it really seems like, that there is a certain movement that has been sparked at university and maybe also in St. Gallen. Would you support this thesis?
Yes, definitely. I mean, one organization I forgot to mention is us, the Fachhochschule. They're also supporting us this year. And this is the first time I actually talked to some of them yesterday, and they said, oh, they were skeptical because of HSG and they had a stereotype and they weren't sure they would be fit in and welcome, and they were really happy to be there, and they really appreciated the event. And I think that's what makes it work, because we're not just at the university. Yes, we are, but we're also in the city. We're present. We had people we had a professor or at the university attending. We had students outside, students at the university. We had people who are activists or just citizens who are coming. So it's quite a wide range of people, and we're coming together.
So let me be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when the first Pride Month years ago,
Mm-hmm.
I remember there was this flag was risen at the university, and I think the president of the university, Professor Ehrenzeller, was holding a speech, and for me it was somehow more present,
Mm-hmm.
but maybe I was also more aware, or I was just more here in St. Gallen. So I would be really curious in how did you maintain this this spirit and this atmosphere, or this movement, and how did you do some specific marketing activities, prior to the event, to raise again or to bring it on the agenda of everybody else?
That's a really good question. And like I said, I'm looking forward for our after video, because that video too, I think, came out 2 months after the Pride Month was over. So, we'll see. Maybe it happened again this year. And what else? Can you repeat the
Sure, I
question?
was just wondering, did you do any special
Yes.
things, such as Professor Ehrenzeller holding a
Mhm.
speech for why LGBTQ matters, or just raising the flag, or,
Yeah.
something
Very good
in this
question.
direction?
Yeah, I think, as I said, so we have more sponsors, more supporters, and we're also collaborating with associations or Vereine at the university. So we have Universa, which is a female empowering network. We're working with Unigay, and the last 2 years they haven't worked together, which I was surprised, because we do have similar aims in the end of the day. And we also had the SHSG support us. We're working with Asia Club in 2 weeks for a pop quiz with a Taiwanese researcher, on LGBTQ plus rights in East Asia. So I think even within the university, we have more collaborations. This makes it easier. This makes it easier to reach more people. And I think that's the best thing you can see. We had a post with so many collaborators, people we were working with, and it was just, the whole page was filled with people, with names.
So how long, did the preparations last? Is it for one, you start right after this or last year's Pride Month you started, and since then you have been preparing, or how much time is this? You're five people, I think.
Yes, we're a 5 people board. It's actually a lot of work at times, because 5 people is not enough to organize. I mean, this year we have 9 events in the span of 1 month, so it is a lot of work. I think the first thing is the board. So we who organize it have to then recruit the next board, and this might be a challenge, because traditionally we haven't had a lot of members or a lot of people who are willing to put in this commitment, but I hope this year it's different. So it starts right in November. Then you have some interviews, you get to know the people, prepare them, do this like KT knowledge transfer, prepare them. And, then you have Lernphase, so nothing. And then in February or at the end of February is really when you start the brainstorming. The first session we had was with the team on a mind map, and we just had to brainstorm, why are we doing this? What are we here for? What is our mission? What are our values? And that's how we started, February till now.
So how did it turn out in the end? What are your focus areas, and why did you choose specifically those focus areas for this year?
Great question again. The first focus is fostering inclusion. We want to include everyone, regardless of where they're from, their sexuality, gender, socioeconomic background. That's really important for us. And me being the first female president or project lead of the initiative, for me, I'm a feminist, and it was important for me to have feminist topics in or include a feminist approach in the way we address our events. Hence, we have Sex Days, which was the first event, and it was a dialogue and exchange to deconstruct heteronormative standards on the sexual experience, because, end of the day, we're all emotional people. We're ruled by, or it affects our judgment, like emotions, our faith, our sex lives. So it was important for me to empower queer, or bring more power to queer and female narratives. So that for me was important. And also, I don't have to say it, but I am a person of color. I'm from India originally. I grew up in Geneva. So I have also had intersectional experiences, because of my skin color, because of my gender, because of, yes. So they're making it more intersectional, bigger, and fostering inclusion. And being visible, being out there. We're here for you. Come join us if you feel the need.
Thank you so much for laying out, how you came up with everything this month. And maybe for those who are not so familiar with all these topics, I wanted to ask you. I know I usually don't like to talk about things that you can just simply read on the internet, but I feel like this is really important. But I think many people can name the letters of LGBTQIA, but maybe not everybody knows what those letters stand for in the end, and would you mind, explaining maybe one or the other letter which might be not so clear, what it really means, or is it?
This is a difficult question. I don't think I'm an expert, Olivier. I would prefer if you Google and find an expert, because this is, it's political, it's a technical term, but at the same time, we had our speakers who presented on day one, sexuality and attraction. And, we mentioned that we need these words because there's lots of people, you could be a woman, you could be a male, you could be non-binary, there's different terms, and you need these terms because it helps you identify and create an identity for you. There's that. And then the second important thing that I can say is it's important to not stereotype or confine that word. So you have maybe an image of what someone who is gay or lesbian should be like, and that's what's wrong. That it should not be the case. It's a very open term. It's there to identify, but at the same time, the meanings of the words and the words themselves are changing and evolving, and maybe in 10 years we'll have new words, and that's what more people feel comfortable with. And it's important to be accepting of that, to understand it. So good question, and accept it.
Thank you so much once again.
I hope it answered the question.
for all the information. I thought about that we also could talk a bit about LGBTQIA at the University of St.Gallen.
Mm-hmm.
And the first question I have, I think it's a quite fairly simple question.
Let's see.
How is this movement organized? You mentioned Unigay before,
Mm-hmm.
but how does it really work? How is the community organized? In the end, it's a community thing, I think.
Yes. Well, from what I have seen, it often comes back down to a people. There is no university-led initiative that, here is a room, you can meet here, or here is this, you can do that. But that's the same for anything, the university has so many initiatives, and they're often student-led, or, they're led by particular people or initiatives, because you need you need people to be extremely in touch with the topics, to raise awareness about them and put in because end of the day, it's a lot of work. So you need to be passionate and you need to have the time to make it there. And so I think it comes back to a few individuals who felt very strongly for it and fought for it and created a space where we can now, us people, we can now go there, freely and connect.
And I think one of these thought leaders, let's put it this way, is Andreas, right? Who was also heading this or hosting this podcast. And he also already did, I think, a Pride Month episode already in 2020 because it was his baby. So, and now I thought, really we could talk about how these things develop as well at university. So, what's going on right now? How did you? Is it better now? Do you feel like there's more inclusion at the University of St.Gallen, maybe as an entry question?
Difficult to say. I mean, how much progress has been made in 2 years? Like, I would need to have statistics and facts, which I don't. But
what is your feeling?
What is my feeling? Yeah. I think Andreas is amazing, and the work he's done has made it easier for us because he's already created a communication channel. People know who we are. They know why we're doing this. So in that sense, it makes it easier to approach them for help, for support. And that's already a first step. Maybe in the ideal world, it's more university focused, but now I would say it's more student driven in my point of view. But that's coming and we're getting there. And I think every day it's getting better, but there's, you can always be better. Yeah.
Is there something you're considering, to propose to the university or together with the Center for Diversity and Inclusion? Is there, something specific that you're planning?
I will talk about a good question. An initiative that Pride Month supported. It was by this organization, initiative called Period, with a SIM initiative, and they wanted to have period like pads and tampons and all of the toilets for people who identify as women. And I really found that a great initiative because that's, a pretty minor thing. It's not so expensive when you compare to other expenses the university has taken, but it's a really firm step of support to all people who identify as women. So that's an initiative I would love to see. We already have it at the square, which is amazing because as a woman, you know, but also you don't know. It can come at any time. It's very uncomfortable. And having a small tampon in the bathroom is a really firm sign of support that, you feel heard and seen already. Like, so on this Period initiative, we collaborated with Change Hub and with Universa and Pride Month. And, already they launched an initiative that there was a 4.5% luxury tax on any of these female sanitary products. Whereas, you have caviar and Viagra that has a much lower tax. So when you look at things like this, it becomes difficult. And that's something I really support. And I hope in the new learning center we're building in the city, we'll have it. I hope in all the university toilets, we can have it.
Actually, I think this initiative was also led by Eva, right? Petkova.
Exactly,
and
yes.
She was here in the podcast,
I
think,
lovely.
a couple of months ago. So very happy to hear that, the project, because she touched upon the project when we talked about it, and she said, yeah, we're getting things done, and actually now things are getting done. So this is really
they got
exciting.
A sponsorship from NRush, and they have so many, and people from Change Hub are refilling them and making sure they're stocked. Like, that's amazing.
Very cool, and very nice that, things are, the circle is closed.
See, it comes back to students. You notice something that's wrong and you have to be the voice of change. Otherwise, change won't happen by thinking about it or saying, oh, this could be better. You have to dedicate the time to it. That's anything.
So change, happens, I think, through those artifacts, for example, such as the tampons and the toilets. And it's good that you talk about it because, us males, or people who identify as males cannot see it. So thank you for talking about that. And I think another aspect of change is also, the mental thing, how we think about these topics. So I wanted to also ask the question, how is your feeling is the sensitivity of HSG students here at the campus for these topics? And if you exchange with people on these topics, what is your take on that?
Look, I think no one wants to be mean or exclusionary. We're all, we're all millennials, or we're young. We grew up in this modern world. But what happens is sometimes we don't we don't mean it in a bad way, but we word it in a way that can hurt someone. This is called a microaggression. You say something because you've first seen it on TV, or because your mom or dad said it, or your grandparents say it, and you don't realize. I myself, would say some things. For example, this is maybe a really extreme example, but apparently when you call a group of females and men guys, it can be exclusionary because you're only referring to the men. But small things like, oh, but that's so gay. These are microaggressions that actually have an impact on the community, and I've heard them quite a lot. So we need to be more increase our tolerance and realize that these microaggressions should not be said. We should cut them down.
Let's talk about this topic.
Mm-hmm.
Right after the next game.
Oh.
So, as usual, we have this HSG sentences game where I propose you some, the beginnings of sentences which are related to the university.
Okay.
And you can just spontaneously finish the sentence. I think today I've prepared 6 sentences.
Lovely.
And I think we can just do that. And then afterwards we'll come back to what you just told me now. Does that work?
Sounds good.
Wonderful. So, let's go. Sentence number 1 is, my favorite study place at the campus is, or
now,
was.
Now the square. I love the co. Otherwise.
If I wouldn't have studied in St. Gallen, I would now study in and.
Warwick in London. Or sorry, in the UK.
And you wouldn't study.
Sorry?
You wouldn't study if you.
I would be at the University of Warwick in England.
Wonderful. And what would be the subject as a follow-up question?
Economics.
Economics. Wonderful. So, I prefer writing paper or exams?
Exams.
On Spritwoch, not sure whether you're familiar with the expression. You are? Great. I would go to?
House party.
About the HSG community, I like particularly?
All the associations.
My favorite course or professor was?
Dr. Frederica Gregorato. She taught a course on the philosophy of fashion, bodies, norms, and things. Amazing. Enlightening. Superb.
Wonderful. Thank you for your flexibility. I actually also had a course that I think that was taught by her, but it was the philosophy of power, and I had it in assessment, and I think it was a couple of years too early for me to really understand what it was all about. But tell me, what was so enlightening? Because I think it's also somehow connected to what we're talking about today.
So, I identify as a female, and my sense of dress is, particularly feminine, so to say. And we talked on these topics that, we do subconsciously. Like, if I'm going out, what am I wearing? If I'm wearing like high heels, a stiletto, some questions were, is the stiletto feminist? Or, for example, are women who wear a burqa, are they anti-feminist? And we really had enlightening conversations about the bias in the way we dress and the way what we wear. What else? I'm trying to think of something. Like the male gaze and how often we don't want to be sexualized, but at the same time it's there. So really back and forth, and really things high, not high level, but deep level. So not just really apparent things, but subconsciously within ourselves that we don't realize we're doing. And I felt I related to a lot of the points we discussed.
You said before, this thing is, to say, this is so gay, for example. This is really this subconscious thing as well, right?
Yes.
And
I think it's unconscious bias, yes.
Unconscious bias, exactly. And, if it happens, if you observe it in your surroundings or with the people you hang out with, how do you, do you raise it in that moment? Or how do you, how can we talk about these things when they happen? Do you have any strategy, or strategy to how to listen,
I think the best thing is to ask a question, because maybe they just said it without thinking about it. That's what I meant, no one wants to be mean. They just say things because they haven't thought them through. That's what I believe. So, ask them, what did you mean by that? Or why is that gay? Why isn't being gay good? Make them question themselves, and then make them have this, the reflex, because I think end of the day, our thoughts are really powerful. We as humans often tend to overthink or think about the things we do. So lead them on this journey of reflection, and maybe they'll realize it can be exclusionary, it can be homophobic, and they should not say it.
I could imagine, even if you do it, so friendly by asking a question which is implying that you want to understand why this happened or why somebody said the things that they say. Um, and do these conversations usually, how do these conversations turn out? Did you have, do you have an example where it turns out really well, or do you have an example? Because sometimes the discussion is also very emotional, right? So people can get really quickly offended.
Yeah, I think it depends. If you're with a group of strangers, they will be like, okay, cool, because you don't really know each other. But if you know them on a bit more of a personal basis, it can evolve to more of a conversation, like, oh, I'm interested, please tell me more, or they're not interested. And then I personally don't press it because, I mean, I believe it's wrong, but at the same time, I don't want to enforce my views on them. So I would raise it, but I wouldn't take it further. That's what I would do. But there's a website you can search, microaggressions.something.org, and they tell you lots of different ways as a bystander, as a victim or attacker, how you can react to situations, and it's amazing.
So let me talk about also, or let me ask you the question: what is your broader vision if you had to picture a more inclusive world in 2030, for example, or 2040 or 2050? What would that be? Now we talked about, really the micro scale, and let's switch a bit to the grand scale, the grand stage. How would you picture this world?
I think it's the same. I really don't think we need monumental change. We're already on the path. We just need to be a bit more evolved. Everyone has to be more open-minded. There's a lot of people who are not so comfortable in coming out or expressing their sexuality and views because they're scared of being judged by exactly this mental thing. So I really think it's the breaking of a mental barrier. So I would love to see, gay or homosexual couples walking around university holding their hands, to have, a wide range of professors and teaching assistants, because to be honest, the majority have been men. So I would love to see diversity just organically being there without having to raise it every single time. People have told me, oh, but this company has a rule of hiring 50% women or 50%, 30%, female leadership, but that's so unfair. And I'm like, dude, the world is 50-50. We, generally speaking, women aren't dumber or stupid. We're all equal, mentally, and yes. So if everything was equal, there was no patriarchy in our society, there would be the equal amount of, female leaders and like politicians and everything and professors, but there isn't. There's a massive lack. So that's what I would like to see more.
This is a spontaneous question I have now. So I think the university is also pushing towards
yes,
more female professors, I think. Are you involved in that process?
I'm not involved, but I would support it because, there's, like, I think one thing is representation. If you don't, like, I personally, when I was 12, I wanted to go into the sciences, like STEM, and then something happened, and I decided, no, it's fine, economics is better, or BVL. So I didn't do it, and I think back, and I think maybe if I had more, like female leaders, I mean, I'm not blaming it, I just think something, maybe whatever, I don't want to do that. So we need to encourage more women to reach out to these cool, like, science technology positions, and or in the work, like, also personally speaking, when I was applying for jobs, I don't speak German. I mean, I do, I'm learning it, I have a B2, but I'm not super fluent or as comfortable as I am in English and French and Hindi and in German. So I found myself, like, I fit all the criteria except for the German, so I didn't apply. And then I realized in my current job, like, it was the same, but I was like, you know what? It doesn't matter. I already have a lot of skills. I can't be perfect. And, they appreciate me and my experiences. They will take me. And they did. And it worked. So I realized I was holding myself back because of barriers that society told me I couldn't do it. So these are the things that happen when you start equally, and then women face more barriers internally, externally. These comments about, like, women who are starting a family, and if they can't work, and so many, like, implicit biases that hinder women in the workspace or in professional achievement careers. So I think we need policies like these to encourage that and to equalize this massive gap we have. Otherwise, we would naturally see a 50-50 result as we see in people in the world.
So before you said, we don't need so many changes,
Mm-hmm.
and now you said it's a massive gap.
Oh,
So what is? How do you? Is this another contradiction for you, or how do you? How would you? Let's say this. That maybe it's also a bit provocative.
yes, you asked the right questions. I think, like I said, we're getting there. We have the policies. Like in my ideal world, we wouldn't need the policy because we would already have lots of female professors. But we don't have that, so we need the policy. Like same right now, we wouldn't need Pride Month or because some people ask us why isn't there a month for straight people or, for example, Black Lives Matter, All Lives Matter, and that's not the point. It's because these groups are marginalized and have repeatedly faced discrimination and fewer opportunities than the more privileged group has, and that's why we need let's say like you're a mannequin or puppet, like we need these strings pulled to equalize the floor because end of the day should be equality. So I does that answer your question? We need these strings, but in my ideal world we don't need the strings, but we're not there yet. But we're getting there. Well, at least we have support and we have systems like support for students who need financial aid. Like that's also something that is not been there always, and we need to like make up the gaps that are there.
What are for you the most important equality dimensions? Because I think equality is,
Mm-hmm.
or there are so many dimensions where you could have equality, and I think it would make sense to focus on some, or maybe you oppose and you say all dimensions matter, or maybe I mean, it's a difficult question, but what do you have a take on that? Did you
I
think
think
about that already?
I haven't, and I think the definition will change. What I think today might not be what I think in like 5 years. So when when let's say I was like maybe like 10 in my sports class, and I was like, why is my gym teacher always picking on the guy to do the exercise or the demo? Why isn't he picking on women? Because the sports teacher thought that maybe the women can't do it or are shy. I don't know. And in an ideal world, it would have been like equal. So your question is
Is there
what?
like a specific dimension, or equality can be in so many dimensions, right?
Yes.
And somehow we have to focus on some, right? And currently you would just say it's basically, as I
Mm-hmm.
understand it, it's basically a conversation between society within
Mm-hmm.
society to define which dimension we should focus on.
But we're 7 billion people on the planet. We don't need to focus on one thing. We have so many people. We have so many groups. I mean, there's inequalities everywhere, and I don't think I have the right to say one is more important than the other. I feel passionately for this, so I promote. That's why I'm here. Someone else might think differently, and they promote like sustainability is a massive topic. Reducing poverty, and these are also or education gap. These are also very valid points, and you need to pick your battles, right? You choose what you feel most passionately for because it comes back to that what you believe strongly in, and that's what leads you to take action.
You just mentioned it, pick your battles, right?
Mm.
And I think people who are maybe not so much friends with LGBTQ, there is this common answer. Oh, but we have so many other problems to solve. And just as right now we have this war in Europe, this is like omnipresent. How do you react people who say, but we have also other problems, or we have maybe more, let's say, problems such as hunger in Africa, which is more, threatening the lives of people. And the question we're having here is maybe only threatening the quality of life, if you want. So, how would you react to that?
There's different levels. There's different the problems that we have about poverty are in some ways more extreme because they don't have enough nutrition to we have, I don't even know the number, but so many people living under $2 per day, and that's like literally below this absolute line of poverty. So I think we can't in one day, in one conversation, resolve everything. um and I think part of what I said can come back here is this intersectional approach. We need to, consider several dimensions and try to adopt a more inclusive approach in resolving them. But at the same time, we're a university of business, a social sciences university of business, economics, law. Um, so I think in that sense, it makes sense to focus on what we're doing because it impacts us the most. we are in a privileged position to be talking about this, that's for sure. So I think that's why we're focusing on these topics, because they affect us more.
And I think, this whole debate also started to be recognized by business. So what I can observe is, that there's sometimes, and also at the Pride Month, there's this networking event, for example, with P&G, or there was this networking event, and, companies would maybe specifically also recruit LGBTQ members. And I could imagine that for some people, this also means a disadvantage, that they feel disadvantaged by not being basically part of this LGBTQ community and having like a disadvantage compared to them. And, you can maybe react to that, or
But this comes back to the topic of hiring, encouraging female leadership. It's about equalizing it, because someone maybe who identifies as LGBTQ plus has had a difficult time coming to terms with it, or to study if they face homophobic comments or aggression, microaggressions, or actual cases of assault. We had a talk yesterday and it was astonishing about, the facts that there are. So in general, it's difficult, and these policies are there to encourage people. Companies are not stupid. They're not going to just hire anyone because, oh, he's gay, let's hire them. And that was with quotes, because that was a very weird thing. Yeah. But they want to just encourage people who might be shy or who might not have the resources or the lack to again equalize the playing ground.
and you already said it before, we need those voices of change, right? And let's say you're a voice of change. So the question is,
That's an honor.
where would you see the best potential for change? Is it politics? Is it, regulation? Or is it to do more, let's say, noise, creating awareness? Where should we, start digging?
Digging. I think it's I think it's the small things. I mean, of course, creating noise is important, because sometimes just people have no idea. But, it's normalizing the fact that a child may have two parents of the same gender, not assuming that, oh, do you have a boyfriend, or do you have a girlfriend? Not assuming these are like micro, I think it comes back to like what I said, microaggressions to everything. We're just cooler people who don't assume things based on when we meet someone, and really keep an open mind to their experiences. But we assume, we often, like in the household, we assume that a mother will be the caretaker for the child. A mother will do more of the domestic chores. Even in Switzerland, I think over 60% of domestic work is done by women. So this is not equal here. And I think if we balance that, then children get a more equal view that housework, I mean, this is a kind of cliche example, but housework is not only a task for females.
Thank you so much for these thoughts and the thoughts throughout the podcast, Sakshi. My proposition is now that we move on to the end.
Mm-hmm.
And the end in our podcast is always the story cubes. So everyone who listens regularly knows what the story cubes are. I'm going to explain it to you briefly. So I'm going to give you now 3 cubes. You can roll it, and then you'll see 3 icons, and you can just tell, 3 short stories that were connected to Pride Month, or connected to your life at uni, or just generally to your life. And yeah, I'm handing over to you the dice.
Sounds fascinating.
Let's go.
All right, so I have a chalice, or a sort of fancy cup. I have a shield and 3 screws. If I had more time, I could probably make a cool story out of it. But
I'm pretty sure.
I'll tell you what comes to mind. When I look at the chalice, it reminds me of a family trip I took with my parents and my sister. We went to Georgia and bought a really cool set of fancy glasses that we use for special occasions. So it's a cool momentum, reminds me of that. When I look at the shield, I think of safety, the police, but I think safety in general, it can be like protecting yourself during sex, or up to like, I don't know, war. So just keep in mind, be safe, precaution. It's always better to say precaution is better than cure. So keep in mind. And these 3 screws together could be, it's like a mechanism, it's a flow. You don't just get from A to B directly. It takes many steps, and if you have a long journey ahead of you, brace yourself, write down short achievable goals, and celebrate the small victories to get to the big goal, because every step matters.
Wonderful. Thank you for being spontaneous once again. It was a pleasure to have you here. Thank you for, raising, being a voice of change, raising these important topics once again, and for all your work that you do for Pride Month and this movement. So it was a pleasure. Hope to see you again on campus, and to everyone else. Thank you for tuning in. Send us feedback, send us ideas who we should talk to for the next time. Let's keep in touch. And other than that, thank you for doing this with me, and have a great time.
Thank you so much, Oliver. I wish you the best as well.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.